We've actually looked at the cost of just onboarding and what it costs to onboard and train somebody to then have them leave within a year. And it's devastating. It hurts an organization's bottom line. So if you invest in your culture and you invest in those things up front, you teach your employees, and we brought up this idea of managers, but train up your managers. Make sure your manager is somebody that an employee wants to work with, wants to work for, wants to show up for, and that boss needs to be coaching that employee. Yeah. So it's a two-way street.
Welcome to the BetterCulture Podcast, where we make the clear connection between better culture and better business. This podcast is for leaders who want to build stronger teams, drive thriving companies, and enjoy your leadership role along the way. Now here's your host, Brett Hoogeveen, a leadership and culture aficionado, keynote speaker, and co-founder of BetterCulture.
Welcome back to the BetterCulture Podcast, where we explore how better culture builds better business without the buzzwords and BS. Today, I'm joined by someone who knows that culture isn't just a business nicety, it's a life and death differentiator in healthcare. Danielle Geiger is the practice administrator at Nebraska Cancer Specialists, a group that not only provides world-class cancer care, but was also recognized in 2025 as one of Omaha's best places to work. Danielle started her career as a nurse practitioner, serving patients directly. And over the years, she's grown into a leadership role where she now leads a 380-person multi-site operation. She's seen firsthand how culture impacts both patients and employees and how it ultimately drives results. Danielle, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Danielle, could we start just a little bit with your story, how you went from sort of directly serving patients to finding yourself in the role of practice administrator for a pretty good sized company?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started my career in nursing, I was working as a bedside nurse at the University of Nebraska here in Omaha.
Go Big Red.
Yes. And I had the pleasure to take care of oncology patients while they were hospitalized. And I decided I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to get my master's degree. I wanted to do more. I wanted to help these patients in other ways. So completed my schooling, and my first job as a brand new nurse practitioner was at Nebraska Cancer Specialists. So I was blessed to be employed there, blessed to be able to take care of patients in a different setting where they were doing well, feeling better, and thriving with cancer. So did that for about the first 10 years of my career, direct patient care, lots of great benefits, went home at the end of the day knowing I was making a difference. It was wonderful. And then the president of the practice, a physician, came to me and said, our administrator is going to retire and we'd like for you to do that. And I laughed and said, no way. I love taking care of patients. I'm not ready to give that up.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, well, we'll talk about this again. And we did. And he eventually wore me down, and I agreed to do it. And it started out with me still doing patient care and also trying to lead the practice.
Sure.
And soon realized that I was going to have to look at patient care differently and realize I was still helping patients, but I was doing it in a different way.
How big do you think overall, how many employees or how large was the practice when you became administrator?
Yeah, so at that time, it was much smaller. We only had you mentioned we had 380 employees now. At that time, we just had over 100 employees.
Sure.
We were operating out of about 3 or 4 locations and had maybe 5 or 6 physicians. It was much smaller.
And how many physicians today? What does that look like?
Yeah, so today we have over 20 physicians. We have about 30 nurse practitioners and PAs.
Okay.
We're all over the state of Nebraska. We have over 16 locations, so
Fantastic.
We've grown quite a bit.
Well, before we dive a little bit into more culture-related topics, could you also just quickly give a sense of really what Nebraska Cancer Specialists does? What are the services you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So our mission and our goal at Nebraska Cancer Specialists is to be in the communities where our patients live and work. We know when you receive a diagnosis of cancer, it's very overwhelming. There's a lot of things you have to deal with, and we want to make access to care not be one of those issues for patients. So we have clinics, like I mentioned, all over the state, and even within the Omaha metro area, we have several clinics. We want to be there for patients. as we've grown, we've realized that our patients are doing well, they're surviving cancer, they're thriving, but they have a lot of side effects, not only while they're receiving treatment, but when they're done with treatment. So there's some lifelong things our patients are working through. And so we've added other services. So we have mental health, we have dietitians, we've added other support services, social work, things to help our patients really thrive while they're going through treatment and through survivorship as well.
Yeah. So moving more toward is a holistic sort of model. I don't know if that's a word you use, but something like that, right?
Yeah,
sort of a bigger vision for what cancer care looks like.
Yeah, we say we focus on mind, body, and spirit.
Okay.
So it isn't just, taking care and curing them of their cancer. It's taking care of their entire being.
Wonderful. Well, that's helpful to me, and I'm sure to the listeners as well, giving a little background there. So
yes.
Awesome. So the reason that I invited you in is to talk a little bit about, I know culture is a word you use a lot. Disclosure, NCS is a client of BetterCulture's. So Danielle and I have worked together on some initiatives over the years, but I know how much you have prioritized culture across your organization. And so I want to dive into that. Not only how do you do it, what does it take, but also why is it good for business? What does it do to help NCS deliver on your mission, right? And so I'd like to start there if you're willing to talk with us a little bit about why? Why do you focus so much on culture? What are some of the things that you think or can prove that does for NCS?
Yeah, well, I mentioned that part of our mission is to be where the patients are, making it easier for them to access care. And to really talk more about that, I would say that we put the patients at the center of everything that we do at NCS. We focus on patient care when we're starting new initiatives, when we're going to add additional services or another clinic location. We're really focused on how does this improve the lives of our patients. Mm-hmm. There's lots of other things in business that you have to focus on, but if you can bring it back to why this matters for the patient, it really makes a big difference. And we've seen that it's made a difference in our success, our growth, our bottom line.
Yeah.
Part of that too is focusing on your employees. So we really have two groups that we serve at NCS. We serve our employees and we serve our patients.
I love to hear that, by the way. I love it when organizations talk about their customers or their employees, as someone that they're actually serving as well as their customers.
Yeah, and we've kind of done this where, who's the most important, who's number one, but really there is no number one. It's equal. It's patients and it's employees.
Yeah.
And if we take great care of our employees and give them a place where they can show up and do meaningful work every day and feel good about it, then they're going to provide excellent patient care, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah. So you told me a story in the last week as we were discussing about this, about how your core values, right, the things that you lean into to help shape the culture for employees, actually show up sometimes in the words or the way that your patients talk about your organization. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do give our patients an opportunity after each of their visits to give us feedback. We want to know what we're doing great, but more importantly, we want to know where there might be an opportunity for us to improve. So we ask them to tell us about their experience, tell us if we would be somebody they'd refer a friend or family member to, and then we give them an opportunity to share any feedback that they want to. One of the things I share with each of our new hire groups is a quote, and it talks about, it's from Maya Angelou, and it talks about how people will remember how they felt more so than they'll remember who it was that provided the care, who made the difference for them. And so we review that with our new hires and we say, show up, be amazing. The patients may not remember who you are, what your name was, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And so we really use that to help build our core values. And we had a group of employees, we had IT, we had patient-facing, we had billing members. So we had everybody just get together, work on our core values, because we didn't want to be the company that just puts them up on the wall or puts them on the letterhead,
yes,
but doesn't actually live them. So we wanted our people to put our core values together. So I mentioned we do our our patient experience survey after each visit. And when patients reply to us, they don't always list the name, but they'll say things about how they felt or about how our staff treated them. And I have the pleasure of sending those out each week to our staff to start off their Monday, so they get to see the great things that our patients are saying about them and the care that they provided.
Yeah, and sometimes those results sound a lot like what your goal was from the beginning of how you want them to feel.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
What a great example of ultimately how culture goes full circle. We say, look, we're focusing on how we treat employees and how we want employees to show up for the purpose of a business result, right? In this case, customer satisfaction, customer experience, right?
Yes.
Every organization understands that satisfied customers mean successful business, right? And this is one of the ways we get there.
Yes, exactly. And these are also things that we put out there on our website. So if we're talking about successful business practices, share your shout outs. You know, if you have patients that are saying amazing things about you or whatever your business might be, share that with the community. Let them know, hey, this is what people are saying about us, so that they're inclined to come and experience that service as well.
Wonderful. Well, often people ask me, because I talk about culture all the time, and I love talking to organizations that prioritize it and that have been recognized objectively as a great place to work, a best place to work. But sometimes people will ask, what does that actually do for business, Brett? Like, give me a business metric that actually shows that having a great culture is helping the business. And would you mind talking a little bit about how you think about staff retention, et cetera, and maybe share a little bit of data there on whether or not this focus on culture is actually helping you run a smoother and more successful business from a staff perspective?
Yeah, so we start from the moment of putting an application out there. When we have an open position, we want to make sure that we're taking the time and effort and putting the energy into hiring the right employee. Especially in healthcare, a lot of times you can feel like this sense of urgency where we need to fill this position. We need nurses. We need medical
Especially
assistants.
in healthcare, yeah.
Yeah. And we've just decided we're not going to be desperate. It may mean that our other staff has to pick up and maybe work a little harder, but our staff knows that our goal is to hire somebody that's great to work with, somebody that's fits our culture, somebody that they are going to want to show up and spend 40 hours a week with.
Yes.
So we start at the point of bringing new employees on. We're making sure we're making very intentional choices of who we hire. And then once we onboard, bring new staff on, we spend a lot of time talking about our culture, talking about how that employee fits in, talking about finding the right job for them, and finding the right place for them, how we want to grow them. I'll often say to people, I've been at NCS for 20 years, and we know most of our employees won't be here for 20 years. But when you leave NCS, we want you to have new skills for life, new skills that you can take to your next job. We want you to be a better person.
Yeah.
So we put a lot of effort into our orientation, our onboarding. And because of that, we see extremely low turnover numbers.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to the turnover thing in a second. I want to make one just point that I think this will give context, right? What I heard you say is that you're so invested in your employees' success, right? You want them to grow, you want them to develop, you want them to be happy and successful. And if I'm an employee in an organization and I feel that from my employer, that my manager, that my organization cares about me and my success, that's probably going to motivate me to want to be there, right? To enjoy working in this place, to think this is a great organization, the type of place that makes me want to stick around.
Yes.
Okay. So you got any data that can show that people want to stick around at NCS?
Well, I can tell you, people, to your point, Brett, people want to be seen and people want to be heard, right? And they want to do meaningful work and they want to do it for a great boss. And so we've kind of talked about all of those things a little bit already, but we have seen that in our turnover. So in healthcare, national turnover rates are 20 to 25%. Our current turnover is 5.7%.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Well, we think so.
Yeah. Congratulations. Right. I mean, that is so fantastic. And, that has such, every business leader, business owner that I talk to will tell me people are our most valuable resource, particularly if you have good ones,
Yes.
right? If you can hire the right people, you got to keep them. And not only is it expensive and time consuming to fill positions and rehire, and anyone that's been in that position knows how much time, energy, and cost that can take. But separate from that, there's also such a benefit to the quality of the care and the services you're able to provide when you have a consistent, stable, experienced, aligned workforce, right?
Yes.
And when people are choosing to stay, that's just such a clear acknowledgement that of all the great work you guys have done on your culture. So congrats.
Yeah. We've actually looked at the cost of just onboarding and what it costs to onboard and train somebody to then have them leave within a year. And it's devastating. It hurts an organization's bottom line. So if you invest in your culture and you invest in those things up front, you teach your employees, and we brought up this idea of managers, but train up your managers. Make sure your manager is somebody that an employee wants to work with, wants to work for, wants to show up for, and that boss needs to be coaching that employee. Yeah. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah. So talk to me more. I want to ask, I guess, another big question, right? We talk about, is this valuable, right? Best place to work, it's fantastic. How does it show up for you and your patients? And I think we've covered that pretty effectively, right? That having a great team and a great culture is valuable, both to the bottom line, to patient experience, to outcomes, all those things. So how do you build it? What does it actually take to create a fantastic place to work, to continuously improve culture? And in the 4 or 5 years that I've known you guys, maybe longer, the thing that stands out to me is every time I talk to you, you're focused on how can you get better? What can you do different, right? And that is a key, something that I can almost sense in an organization who's going to have a great culture 3 years from now, not by what they're necessarily doing today, but how interested they are in, we're doing good things, but what are we doing to get better, right? So describe for me over the last, whatever time frame you want to look back at, what have you done? What does it take to build such a successful, high-performing, healthy workplace culture?
Yeah. So I think first you have to know what it is you're doing well and what it is you're not doing well. So you have to ask. You have to ask your employees. And maybe you use an employee experience survey. Maybe you do something a little more informal, but you have to know what you're doing great. And not just because you think you're doing something great. You have to know what your employees think is great and what needs work.
Yes.
And then once you know that, then you have to do something about it.
Right. So let me just jump in on the knowing part, okay? For anyone listening, you should at some point be doing some type of a survey to get a sense of how your employees feel about your organization. Don't be afraid to get that data as long as you're willing to do something to work on it. I always work with all of our clients, and NCS probably doesn't have many of these quote unquote opportunities. But if you have some low areas or some things that sting a little bit when you get feedback, don't ever look at that as a problem. Look at that as an opportunity to get better. Hey, I wasn't aware of this, or maybe we need to change or do something to improve that, right? So that's just a quick take on surveying. It's not to find problems, it's just to find opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, that was my quick aside.
No, that's great. So you get the survey, and so again, be committed to make changes, but find things that maybe are some low-hanging fruit that you can make immediate change. That way the employee knows, like, hey, we completed that survey, and look, they're already changing things because of what we said. So you can't do the survey and ignore it.
No, you cannot.
You can't do the survey and pick some big, lofty change that's going to take so long to implement that the employee forgets they even told you about it. If I think about something that's probably most important, it's being committed to it. And you have to continue. Whatever you decide to change, whatever you want to work on in your culture, you have to keep working on it. It's not something that you get your survey back and you meet as a team and you say, okay, this is what we're going to work on, and let's start next week, and everyone go, and then never check back in. This is a lifelong commitment.
It is. And the organizations that make the most progress, and you're a perfect example of this, are the ones that think about culture as a continuous improvement project, not as a party. Not as a benefits or perks, we should get some foosball tables. That'll help our culture. No, it won't. That's not what changes how people feel day to day in the work environment. You've got to know what you're looking for, know where you are today, and make steady and consistent changes and progress to try to get there, right? So
yes.
Congrats. You guys have really done that, which is why I wanted you here on the show. So, okay, so you measure. How do you think about then maybe different ways to make progress, or maybe how you think about different parts of the organization that you're focusing on? I don't know. Where do you want to go from here?
Yeah. So we actually, something that's helped us a lot is to get our employees engaged in that change. either if you want to set up a committee or if you want to just say, hey, these are a few things we want to work on based off of our survey, who wants to help? If you can get your employees engaged in that change, then they can get their teammates and their coworkers on board, and everybody feels good about the differences that are happening. Change is hard. And even when change is for the better, sometimes people don't understand, well, why are we changing? So it's good to have that investment up front in change.
Yeah. Sometimes we talk about proactive conflict resolution, or a term we use obscurely called psychological inoculations. But one of the benefits from pulling in a diverse employee group into that process is when an employee, well-meaningly a month later says, why do we have to do this? Your odds go up that there's actually somebody within earshot that goes, oh, I know, like I was in on that, right? If management just makes these decisions and tries to communicate them downhill, we know people don't read emails. They tune out in virtual calls sometimes. We try to communicate and over-communicate, but employees still just don't hear the message. And so if you have people right there working next to them that say, actually, I know why we're doing that. I was in on the conversation, or I'm a part of the initiative. It actually really helps to reinforce at the local level the why. Like, why are we making this change? So again, congrats.
Yeah, it's one of your, I always think of this better culture tenet of bringing people in the tent, right? Bringing them under the tent.
Yes.
People, I said this earlier, people want to be seen, people want to be heard. If you bring people in early, they can be the PR for your practice and for this change you're making or for your business, and they can sell it. And instead of saying, well, I don't know, I just do what I'm told, they can, like you said, be like, no, I was a part of that. I was at that meeting. I know why we're doing this. And you guys, this is great for us.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. You think about this. If you want employees to feel connected to their organization and a healthy culture, you want them to feel like it's their company. Maybe treat them like it's their company. Share information, invite them into decision-making processes. All of those things are so important for building a sense of loyalty, trust, pride, connection, all of those things.
Yeah.
So, very cool. I don't know if you want to go into this, so you can say no. But you mentioned that you have different groups inside of your organization. You got your physician group, you have management group, you have an all-employee group. How do you think about culture across, different parts of an organization, different levels of an organization? What do you treat everybody the same or differently or strategically, or how do you think about that?
Yeah. So even kind of going back to how did we make NCS a great place to work? We frankly started with our leadership team, and we felt like we needed to this sounds harsh, but maybe manage some egos on our leadership team and make sure that, because it does sting when you read employee feedback and they may say this manager does that or this person micromanages or.
Right. These are opportunities. Yes.
So you have to manage the ego, make sure your leadership team is on board. They need to know, like, hey, our goal and our focus is culture. We want people to come and stay and be better when they leave. So we need all of you leadership to be on board. So we did that. And that took a long time. It took several years of trainings and learnings and really bringing up our leadership team.
Yeah. And then some bumps and mistakes and other things along the way, right? This isn't a smooth, easy ride.
No, and it is. It's a commitment, right? And then we realized we also have physician leaders in our practice, and they may or may not have a title, but they're leaders and they're looked up to by our staff, by our management team. So we took some opportunities at their meetings to bring culture in and the importance of culture. And with some of our physicians, have had the opportunity to work one-on-one in some training opportunities. So we brought that team on board.
Yeah.
And really, go ahead.
No, I just, it's neat to hear anecdotally. I've heard that, you increasingly have physicians that understand the opportunity that they have to make such a positive influence by just little things they can say or do can make a big impact on staff and certainly on patients as well, right? And so, culture is impacted significantly by people with titles. And even if it's not an org structure title, that position is a pretty big title in any organization, right? And their words carry weight. And the more conscious and intentional that some of your fantastic positions are, they can make an impact. And that's so cool to hear.
Yeah. Giving them, like you said, little scripted things they can say. They can show their employees, like even just thank you. But if you take that to the next level, thank you for doing this, or I appreciate you. And even better is I appreciate you for doing this. So just really getting them kind of into this idea of culture's important and here's why, and showing them the financial metric and the difference it makes on our bottom line. That's how you get your physician owners engaged.
Yeah.
And so then in this last year, we've really shifted within the last 12 to 24 months to how do we get our employees bought into this idea of what is their role in culture. And so we have the 20 tenant program. We've started that at Nebraska Cancer Specialists.
BetterCulture's own 20 tenets of culture program?
Yes, that's the one.
Fantastic. That's
the
great.
one.
Yes.
And so we are using those. We have them at our meetings. We have them at our one-on-ones. We actually had a staff meeting this morning and we talked about the no gossip tenet.
Oh, all right. Tenet 11. Yes.
Yes, that's
awesome.
That's it. So just getting all the groups, all the stakeholders involved and engaged, knowing what their role is in culture, because it can't just be your leadership team. It can't just be your C-suite or your low-level managers. Right. Everyone has to be involved and engaged if it's going to be successful.
Well, I'll tell you, just my perspective, and we love what we do with 20 Tenants and empowering organizations with like language and tools to talk about what every employee can do to build culture. That can work in any organization and should. It's often the last thing that kind of comes up for organizations that are focused on culture. It's okay, we got a senior leadership alignment, we got to have managers effective, and then finally we get down to like, what can everybody do to shape a positive work environment and to grow their own skills, et cetera. So I'm just glad to hear, whether it's our programming or other great things I know that you're doing, that you guys are, you've pressed messaging down to that level of saying everybody is so important in the type of culture we create here every day.
Yeah. It's really made a difference. And it's fun to see our employees who, you talk about this water cooler chat, right? And we'll walk around and we'll hear them talking about the tenants, or they'll say, did you watch that video? Did you see the part where he said this?
Yes.
So it's sort of changed some of the dialogue our staff is having, which is great.
That's awesome. Well, if you told me a great story that I'm hoping we can kind of close with about this term that you use at NCS, which is called NC Yes, right? Tell me a little bit about what that means inside of your organization, where that came from, and because I think it's a really neat way to think about, at a high level, just one way to think about the type of culture a company wants to have.
Yeah. So one of our physicians, she's actually been with the practice a few years. After she'd been there just a few months, I had invited her to our all-staff meeting. So we do those twice a year. It's a big group, so we rent out a place to do it. We have a lovely breakfast. We have a speaker, something engaging. And I usually have a physician or two kind of introduce, get everybody welcomed and feeling in the right mood to enjoy the meeting. And so she stood up at the meeting and was introducing herself, and she was saying how one of the things that she realized almost immediately when she joined was we find a way at NCS to say yes, and that she felt like that was our secret sauce.
Very cool.
The place where she had worked before as a physician, if she had a question, she jokingly said, before I could even get the question out, I got no. And she said, in here, you guys find a way to say yes, even when my questions are ridiculous or my asks are really over the top.
Yes.
Or something I want for a patient seems just really out of reach. Yes. And so we took that and we ran with it. And so we say NC yes.
Yes.
So
that's wonderful. I think that's a great place to sort of wrap the conversation. Again, put yourself in an employee's shoes, regardless of the level of the employee. If they work somewhere where when they have an idea, when they have a question, when they have a concern, when they have a something, that they feel heard, welcome to voice those things, that their questions at least are going to be considered and not just, just follow the protocol, follow the et cetera. Just imagine the impact that has on how someone feels about their company. And again, that's what culture is. So kudos to being such an NC Yes company. I love it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Any final advice, anything else that we should share, anything we didn't cover, Danielle, that you think for leaders, for anyone listening, even outside of your industry, that you want to leave us with as a takeaway?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. There's not just one thing that you can do to make a great culture or to become the best place to work. There's lots of little opportunities, and it is a lifelong commitment. So this isn't just a project you're going to work on for a few months. So you need to be committed. You need to get the right people on board with you. And even when things get rough and things get frustrating, maybe set it aside then and say, you know what, we have so many other things we need to focus on right now, but we are going to get back to this, but you have to get back to it. You have to stay focused or you'll be starting all over again.
Yes, a continuous focus. I can't argue with that. Awesome.
Yep.
Danielle, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the fantastic work that Nebraska Cancer Specialists does across the community for patients, et cetera, and candidly for your employees too, because that matters a lot. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Want to take the next step to building a stronger culture? We're offering a free 15-minute Better Culture strategy call directly with me. We'll take the time to help you identify real opportunities to make your workplace better. No sales pitch, just real advice to help you lead better. Grab your time right now at betterculture.com/free call. Let's make something even better together.